Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Nelson here. Welcome to the Ryan's Roadmap Show. Today, I'm going to talk about something that, uh, for me, I read this, and I'm going to read you guys a little short story. But for me, this is something that I have a really hard time dealing with, and I know that uh, JJ could probably um, verify this. He could say Ryan is a very, very impatient person. And I understand why many people have that feeling of being impatient. And I think a lot of times it's because you believe that the world kind of revolves around you. I kind of have this problem. I know this about myself. You don't know how many times I've dealt with customer support or services out there. We've got such a technological system running here with the champion movement. For instance, when the call line goes down or a webinar is not working, or my internet was down the other day, I caught myself being so impatient with the internet providers, and it was not because the internet providers had done anything wrong. There are things that happen within companies, within individuals, within people's lives that may cause them to have delay or not fulfill things that they promised they would fulfill in a certain amount of time. And they do this, and they're not doing it because they're lacking some sort of I don't know, what's the word? Lacking, I guess, integrity. I'm not sure. I don't know really what word to pick there. It's because of circumstance. And so many times I catch myself jumping on people for things that basically is my faults for being impatient. And as you can see, I collect a lot of books. I've said this before. I collect books. I'm a book collector. But I say more than a book collector, I don't really look at this as collecting books, as the paper, the cover. There is value in these books, but that's not really why I collect them. What I collect are stories. I always have this feeling that one day, what if the world just goes crazy? I have a collection of stories that you can look on and build upon to look into the past, learn lessons. I'm going to read you guys a short story. This was actually sent to me by a friend, and I'm not going to say the name. Sent it to me in an email, and when I read this story, it was so appropriate for what I've been experiencing the past couple weeks. And when I read it, I was like, man, I need to slow down. I need to slow down in my life and try to be a little bit more patient with people. So I'm going to read you this, and hopefully you hear this story. That's why I love stories. I mean, I could turn Ryan's Roadmap Show into a story every day of some value because of, I mean, these are just a few of the books. I have so many books. I love stories. I love them. I've got so many plays from theater that I open up and read. I love reading plays, reading the direct stage directions, getting this whole visual image in my head of what's going on in a scene, and then taking and identifying and finding the lesson. Because great writers don't just write. Great writers have a purpose in what they're writing for. There's a lesson behind every single word that speaks out of every single character. But this is a story of a real person. What I'm getting ready, this isn't something someone came up with. I'm going to read this to you, and hopefully you see what I'm trying to drive home today with being patient. Here's how it goes. I arrived at an address and honked the horn. After waiting a few minutes, I honked again. Since this is going to be my last taxi cab driver. Since this is going to be the last ride of my shift, I thought I was driving away, but instead I parked the car and walked up to the door and knocked. Typically, if I honk the horn and someone does not come, I simply just drive away. Just a minute, answered a frail elderly woman. I could hear something being dragged across the floor. After a long pause, the door opened. A small woman in her 90s stood before me. She was wearing a print dress with a pillbox hat with a veil pinned to it, like something out of a 1940s movie. I can totally envision that. By her side was a small nylon suitcase. The apartment looked as if no one lived there for years. All the furniture was covered with sheets. There were no clocks on the wall, no knickknacks on the counter. In the corner was a cardboard box filled with photos and glassware. "Would you carry my bag out to the car?" she said. I took the suitcase to the cab, returned to assist the woman. She took my arm and we walked slowly towards the curb. She kept thanking me for my kindness. "It's nothing," I told her. I try to treat my passengers the way I'd want my mother to be treated." And she replied, "Oh, you're such a good boy." When we got to the cab, she gave me an address and then asked, "Could you drive through downtown?" Uh, it's not the shortest way, I answered quickly. "Oh, I don't mind," she said. "I'm in no hurry. I'm on my way to the hospice." I looked in the rear view mirror. Her eyes were glistening. "I don't have any family left," she continued with a soft voice, "and the doctor says I don't have very long." I quietly reached over and shut off my meter. "What route would you like to take?" For the next 2 hours, we drove through the city. She showed me a building where she had once worked as an elevator operator. We drove through the neighborhood where she and her husband had lived and where they were newlyweds. She put me up in front of a furniture warehouse that had once had a ballroom where she had gone and danced as a girl. Sometimes she asked me to slow in front of a particular building or a corner and would sit and stare in the darkness and say nothing. As the first hint of sun was creasing upon the horizon, she suddenly said, "I'm tired. Let's go now." So we drove in silence to the address she had given me. It was a low building, like uh, with a driveway that passed through I don't even know what that is, a partition, I guess. Uh, Two orderlies came out to the cab, and as soon as we pulled up, uh, they were watching her every movement. They must have been expecting her. I opened the trunk and took a small suitcase to the door. The woman was already seated in a wheelchair. She looked at me and said, "How much do I owe you?" reaching into her purse. I said, "Nothing." She replied, "Well, you have to make a living." He responded, there are other passengers." Almost without thinking, I bent over, gave her a hug. She held on to me tightly. "You gave an old woman a little moment of joy," she said. "Thank you." I squeezed her hand and then walked into a dim morning light. Behind me, I shut the door. It was the sound of a closing of a life. I didn't pick up any more passengers that shift. I drove aimlessly, lost in thought. For the rest of the day, I could hardly talk. What if the woman had gotten in and I would have been angry? What if I'd have drove away? What if I was just too impatient and just ended my shift? What if I'd have refused to take the run, or it only honked once, then drove away? On a quick review, I don't think I'd done anything more important in my life. We're conditioned to think our lives revolve around great moments. But great moments often catch us unaware, beautifully unwrapped in what others may consider a small one. I read that and was thinking to myself about how as you know, I know my human flaws. We all have them. And me and JJ are by far from perfect. I know this. I know I have a flaw of being very impatient. I mean, there's a reason I get angry when I drive so much. When I go to a drive-through to get food, every time, it doesn't matter if it's the fastest service in the world, for some reason, I'm like, why is this taking so long? And I never stop and realize that with a little patience, you could really we probably miss great moments in life because of impatience. Simple moments. When I read this, I really thought about it. I thought, man, I should try to be more patient with people. Be a little bit more understanding of people. I've done this. I do this. I mean, I'm just being authentic with you and real, showing you guys my complete flaws that I have. One flaw is certainly when it comes to like internet marketing. When I tell someone, just go create a YouTube account and do this, this, and this, and then they'll email me with, well, how do I create a YouTube account? I'm like, well, go to youtube.com and click on create account. And then they text me and say, where's the button to create an account? Oh my gosh. And I start getting impatient. I start to unravel. And I've never really understood why I'm that way. But when I look at this story, it makes me realize all those times that I would be like, go up there and click the button, create an account. Maybe in that moment, instead of me just being impatient and saying, figure it out, basically, if I could have called and talked to them. See, I don't know what's going through people's lives. I don't know what's happening on the other end of that phone or on the other end of an email. I have no idea. I just assume that this world's supposed to revolve around me. And after reading this story, I realized that there's a piece of me that needs to try and be more patient. Be more patient with my friends, with my family, with strangers. When I'm sitting in a grocery store, I should try to be more patient. I'm going to ask you to try that. Try and be more patient with people. It's sometimes hard. Trust me, I understand. I can promise you, I'm one of the most impatient people when it comes to me wanting to get something done. Give just another small example. I mean, I'm dealing with server companies. Oh my gosh, it's such a headache. And I just start eating and eating, and I just start eating. And what I realize is that all this does is cause problems. And I kind of like made a little quick list here of the opposite effect of being impatient. See, when you're patient, it's going to reduce stress. It's going to make you happier and a healthier person. And I realize that every time I become impatient, I'm no longer happy. I'm frustrated. Frustrated is basically tensed up anger. It will raise my stress level. It will give me a higher blood pressure. So being patient, I could be more happier, more healthy, and my stress will be lower. Decision making. When you're impatient, you make decisions and say things that you probably wish you would have never said. You can see this in Hollywood a lot. How many times do people not think before they tweet? Then they realize a day later, wow, I probably shouldn't have tweeted that. And they do it off of emotion or impatience. They get impatient about something someone else is saying, and they just want to go in and just fix it. That's how I am sometimes. I just want to fix it. And they go in to try and fix it, and they tweet something, or they put something on their Facebook, and it's going to stick with them the rest of their life. I mean, example just happened this week, I think this week or last week, when Michael Moore and Seth Rogen decided that they were going to go out and tweet about American Sniper, and then they realized how quickly people are upset with them. And if they would have just sat and thought about what they were about to tweet, I guarantee you they would have probably not done it. Sometimes I think they think they're untouchable, or people are going to follow them because of who they are. But the end of the day, I mean, if they would have had a little patience about what they were going to do, what they were going to write, the way they were going to make their point, instead of just doing it, would have had better results in better decision making when you're patient. It does something that you read in the Bible, and this is a Bible thing. It'll create compassion and empathy for others when you're patient. And I think a lot of that is when you're patient, you will become a more understanding person. I really think that's what it's trying to say. I don't like to say I know everything about the Bible. So by all means, if you know what I'm referencing and you say I'm wrong, then that's okay. But from what I got out of it was basically patience creates empathy and compassion for others, because it forces you, when you're being patient, to be more understanding, to listen, to be a better listener, and not think so much about yourself and think so much about how something might revolve around you. It also helps you appreciate the process and the growth within yourself. The opposite of that is kind of what we were talking about in that story. You know, that story, the person grew in himself. The great moment came to him. He wasn't out looking for it. And it came to him through patience. Now think about when you're impatient. You may gloss over or miss great opportunities and things that could have affected your life. So I wrote these down too. These are things that I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start trying. I'm going to start trying to do more often. Take a day, one day out of your week. And, oh, my dog. Hey, Riley. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. Riley, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong, girl? You get it? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. My dog just started choking on something. Looks like she got it out. Sorry. But take a day, maybe that's today, and make the goal of your whole day to try and be patient. Be patient in everything that you do, when that's receiving your mail, talking to your family, listening to your child. That's got to be a tough one. Avoiding obstacles in the day. Try and be patient with everybody around you. A second thing, and this is something that I know works, is slow down. Sometimes you just have to stop. You just have to stop and say, I'm going to slow down today. I'm not going to try and do 500 things at one time. Because that, when you put pressure on yourself and you put pressure to get things done, you naturally become impatient because you want things done fast. And trust me, I understand that. I've been dealing with some technical issues with our website here the past couple weeks for you guys, not our website's fine, but for you guys, for your personal websites. I've been working on some things to try and make this more streamlined and work better. And I try to do so much in a single day that when I'm doing those tasks, I'm getting impatient with providers, and I'm getting impatient with other people. I get impatient when JJ will Skype me when I'm in the middle of something. I'm like, JJ, I'm doing this. Get back to me here in a minute. I'm never mean. You see, I'm never mean to people. I always show up with grace and dignity, but inside I'm feeling this impatience. So I just need to slow down. And this one I've kind of already covered. Think before you speak. When you're in a moment and you're feeling, we don't want to be Michael Moores. We don't want to say things that we regret. And we don't want to say things when we don't know what's happening on the other side of a phone or on the other side of someone's life. You know, JJ's talked about this before. There's the world, and then there's your world. You have your world. Your world is extremely different than mine. You know, it's a movie we watched. It was the Equalizer with Denzel Washington. I highly recommend that if anybody wants to have a good movie to watch. I love it because the very first scene is a Mark Twain quote. May remind me of JJ. But he's sitting at a diner with a girl, and this girl looks at him and says, you know, he's like, why don't you do something else? Why don't you do something else with your life? Basically, I'm paraphrasing this scene. And she looked at him and says, I can't do that in my world. And then Denzel looked back at her and said, well, change your world. You know, we get impatient with people and we say things to people, or we will jump to conclusions. You know how many times I've said things? I'm guilty. I've said things being impatient to people. And what I realize is what's in my world. But sometimes I don't realize what's going on in their world. And you think about that elderly lady going to a hospice, and she had no one to take her but a cab driver. All of her family was gone. She had nobody. The cab driver was somebody that day. The cab driver became a part of her world. He didn't just say, I'm going to let her be a part of my world. Because in his world, he was running out of time. He didn't want to wait. He was ready to pull away and leave. He needed to go make money. But in her world, she was going to a hospice. And he just drove. What if he would have just drove away? And what if the next cab driver she called pulled up and she came in and said, here's the address I want to go to. And he said, okay, I'm going to take you there. And he went the fastest way possible, and he didn't detour and let her see her life and go back and see some of these buildings and places, and just took her straight there. Didn't say a word, upset because he had to wait on her because he could have made 4 more calls by the time she got out to the car, dropped her off, didn't say a word, and left. But at the very end of that story, she said, you gave me a piece of happiness today, and thank you. And all of that came from him simply being patient and not letting her just be a part of his world, but also being a part of her world, even if it's just a short moment in time. So yes, change your world. But remember to sometimes be a part of other people's world and try to be a little more patient. I hope this has been good information today for you. It was for me. I mean, it's something I needed. Trust me, I woke up this morning so impatient. And then I received this email and I read this story and I thought to myself, man, what a powerful story. It's a story that's worthy of going up with the books of stories. Something that when the world goes and technology is gone, I can still have this story to tell people in the future. But you guys have a great day. Thank you for being here. Hopefully, you guys aren't, writing down another notch of Ryan Nelson's flaws, because I share them with you a lot. But, it's the only way I can grow is by looking at myself and finding the things that sometimes I could do better. And hopefully, when I share those with you, if you have the same kind of flaw, maybe this can help you in some way. You guys have a great day. Can't wait to see you tomorrow on the morning show. I know we are going to be doing some updates on some schedules soon. We will notify and let you guys know that. We want you guys to be more engaged, more interactive with what we're doing here. This is such a great community. We have great people. I believe it's either Julielle or Julianne maybe next week. I'm not sure. But you're seeing this happen. You're seeing these people come out and start taking control of some of these calls and telling their stories. And I like that. We want you guys to be more engaged. Next week on the Ryan's Roadmap Show, I'm going to try and have a special guest if they're available, and we're just going to talk. It's going to be a little talk, a little more talk showish than me monologuing for 20 minutes. We want to create a culture here where you guys are actively involved, because me and JJ can only do so much. You guys have skills, talents, knowledge, wisdom that we don't have, that you can share with the world to really help people champion their lives. We're going to leverage that. And if you have something, I don't care if you're on the leadership team or not, okay? The leadership team, they have their own thing that they do. You don't have to be a part of the leadership team to say, I want to be a part of sharing. I want to be a leader, okay? So if you want to help host a call, if you have a story, if you have something that you want to share with this community and you believe it's going to help them champion their life, send it to us. We will love to have you be a part of what we're doing here. We would love to have you on a Ryan's Roadmap show or a morning show or a JJ Cafe. I know that there's going to be a little bit of schedule changing because we're going to leverage some other medians that we have. But you guys have a great day. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thank you for listening to me ramble the last 4 minutes for over nothing. But there were a few updates. For the websites, I know people created their websites. They're great. I've seen some of them. They are great. I shot a video yesterday about video marketing. I'm going to try and get that up in the Launchpad sometime in the next couple of days. Optimized Press. I'm going to be introducing that to you guys as well. The one thing that I'm having issue with, just so you guys know, some of you are doing it just fine with the domain mapping. And that's because you are on certain types of domain hosting providers. That being said, there are some that I know I can make it work. I have to rewrite some code to make it work, which is taking me a little bit longer than I thought. I did all of this based on HostGator. When I was building it, didn't really think about it and realized there are some other things that I have to do for some of these other companies. So I thought it was working 100%, and it's working about 70% of the time. So some of you guys I know are waiting and wanting to do your domain mapping. I'm going to work today and do everything I can today and focus towards that. But at the same time, I'm not going to say it's going to be done today. I just have to do my best. But once it's done, I think everyone's going to be happy. I mean, everyone has their websites. Everyone's sharing. I see that. People are starting to share more on Facebook and starting to share more with the blog share and writing more posts. It's exciting to see that because I see the numbers. We had 46,000 visitors last month. 46,000 visitors. That is a lot of visitors. And now with the Champion Pass, we've got more people engaged and involved with the Champion movement, almost double of what our current subscription base is now because of the Champion Pass. So again, if you want to use the Champion Pass, go leverage the Champion Pass. It is a way to get people to become a part of our movement here. So you guys have a great day. Hopefully you can be patient. Try it out. Just try. Pick one day and say, today, this day is going to revolve around me being patient with other people. And let's see the impact that we can have with ourselves, with other people, and maybe one of those little great moments that this taxi cab driver had may happen to us. And for a brief second, we can become a part of someone else's world and impact their life, even if it's at 90 years old driving to a hospice. Thank you for your time.